I think that the relationship that we've built with the Department of Conservation over the last 20 plus years is okay. It's okay in terms of ourselves being able to work with each other. But just like Section 4 of the Conservation Act, it says things like this act must be interpreted and administered in such a way that it gives effect to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. So I suppose in the first instance is that we've got to be able to walk with each other on these conservation management strategies. And at the end of the day is that us as Māori knowing that they, the Pākehā, the Crown, knows that we have grievances with it in regards to our whenua.
Has it been one of learning for both parties?
Yeah, well, I suppose it has been in a way because it hasn't developed the same everywhere throughout New Zealand, the relationship between tangata whenua and DOC. But certainly with ourselves in Ngati Wai, we realised at a very early stage that in order to interpret in an appropriate manner for Ngati Wai, we would have to be able to talk to each other, learn how to have a fight and get on with the job.
Why do you work so well with DOC?
Well, I suppose say for myself, DOC began when in DOC's beginnings, for us as a Niue authority, Ngati Wai. Part of my job was to attend those conversations around whether a property like Punuruku Forest, whether Punuruku Forest should go under the Department of Conservation or under Land Corp. We knew that under Land Corp, well, it's gone. That's the end of it. They'll just sell it off to somebody. But in terms of the Department of Conservation, the Department of Conservation still retained responsibilities to the Treaty of Waitangi. And that's what the conversation has been about for us, is to teach each other to have a conversation based upon a consideration of our concerns as the tangata whenua. And I think that's what it's been really. We've tried really hard to maintain that kind of a dialogue with the Department of Conservation for those reasons.
What does Hen Island or Taranga represent for you and for Ngati Wai?
Taranga, I suppose we've said it oftentimes enough, that when we talk about our offshore islands, in terms of the Department of Conservation, they are the Noah's Arks, that still retain New Zealand's endangered flora and fauna that cannot survive anymore on the mainland. Well, that in itself is something credible enough for us to want to support. But at the same time, ultimately for ourselves, is that Taranga was a home to our tūpuna. It was a place for doing a whole lot of things in their time. And that's what's significant to us, is their signs of their occupation of those islands at that time. Yeah.
So how essential is it for Ngati Wai to preserve Taranga?
Well, you see, you just take the word in that question, preserve. See, for ourselves, Papa Tuanuku preserves the whenua. See, in this particular case, we have here. I suppose I'll go back just a little bit on that, because the Resource Management Act is just slightly higher than the Conservation Act. Is that the Conservation Act in a way is subservient to the Resource Management Act. And so within the Resource Management Act, as far as I'm concerned, you have some of the stupidest words, one of those words being sustainable, is that we will manage the environment in a sustainable way. What that does, that provides for people to think, or to think that someone has already done an audit within those catchments so that it can be managed sustainably. So I'm just trying to say here that within those pieces of legislation, then they were the radical pieces of legislation of 25 years ago that radically changed the way the environment is managed and protected. It was under the Resource Management Act and the Conservation Act. And yet at the same time they have stupid words in them. They like consult, you know, for example, you know, like, and I guess that even bringing it right up to today, you know, like in my kōrero to our Conservation Board the other day, the latest word that is coming out is called co-governance. And we're not prepared to just race off and just adopt that until we're very clear about what does co-governance actually mean to the Crown, or to the government rather. Yep, and I guess that's what's got a lot to do with it. Yeah.
So co-governance, I mean, what would Ngati Wai like to see happen with the islands? Would they just like it to be ring-fenced and left alone? And what would you like to see happen with the islands?
Well, because it's a wahitapu, number one. Number one for us is a wahitapu. And Ngati Wai's policy for entry onto wahitapu goes something like this, that all wahitapu are sacrosanct and cannot be entered for any other reason than maintenance or study that maintains its cultural and spiritual integrity. So that's wahitapu. So we would say straight away that that is a place that you don't just wander on 24/7. Second is that we acknowledge that it is the Noah's Ark for providing a space for our endangered flora and fauna. So that's a double-pronged kaupapa, that one on its own, that it's not a place to just be opened up so that the public can wander around it as they wish. Hey.
We were privileged enough to go on the island ourselves, and that. Just tell me how lucky we were and how privileged we were to walk on that island.
Oh no, I believe that you were very privileged, but at the same time it was important to know that because you do this sort of stuff, is that it's important for the public to see this, to see that you were actually on the island, you had that whole feeling, or you even slept there for the night. And I think that was a very great privilege, that you guys would have to have felt something out of that, you know, that we know for sure, because of the significance of those two things I spoke about. It's a wahitapu, and it is a very special place for preserving our endangered species of flora and fauna.
Charles, he's an Ngati Wai person, one of the workers that was on the trips at the moment. What did you see in him?
Well, Charles, he is one of our young nephews that we've been working with for some time now, or the Resource Management Unit has been working with for some time now. And this is in relationship to some collaborative research that we're doing with the Otago University. So working with Otago University, part of our kaupapa was to build capacity. It's not for us to just open the doors so that Western science can come in and poke around in the place. We're saying that there's got to be some benefit for you being here in the first place, otherwise we don't want you. And so part of that on our own behalf was to say that we wanted to build capacity so that we have put our young people, our nephews and nieces, on those programs to continue to develop their own understanding and awareness of Ngati Wai's environment.
Would it be, I guess, dream, but your wish that in the future that you could see more Ngati Wai on that island doing that kind of work in the future?
Those for weeders, hey, see? And that is something that is still outstanding between ourselves, Ngati Wai Trust Board's Resource Management Unit, and the Department of Conservation. What we know is that the weeds blow from the mainland. They blow from the mainland, so you get pampas and all of these other weeds that are just blowing across and falling onto the island. What we said to them, and that's quite a long time ago, must be between 15 and 20 years ago. We said then, DOC and Regional Council and District Council, Ngati Wai requires you to develop a buffer zone, a 40-kilometre buffer zone all the way along the coast. See? If those islands are that important to you, well, do that. Hey. Rather than that, you've got people wandering around on the island every year pulling weeds. Right?
So basically, anything that's facing the islands along the coastline should be buffer zones. What was the? Did you get a response? Was there a response?
Well, they all roll their eyes, but these things take time, I know, because they would want to know who's going to pay for that. Eh? But for us, at that time, they were putting extreme importance on the island as a place for preserving New Zealand's endangered flora and fauna. Extreme, because at that time the conversations that we're having with each other was about Kiori. And of course we agreed that we knew that the Kiori was having an impact, but we could not agree to the Pākehā wanting to just wipe them right off the whole table. And so that's why we have preserved one of those islands out there for the Kiori.
What sort of impact has removing the Kiori into another island had on this island?
It's not been a negative impact, that's for sure, because in my own research on the Kiori, I found that the Kiori, like if there's 4 seasons in a year, Kiori will eat the best kai in that season. Eh? And if it's bird's eggs, it's bird's eggs. Next time it'll be young sprouting trees and stuff like that. No, there has been impact, and we acknowledge that. That is why that whole kaupapa was working with the Department of Conservation on a hen and chicken islands restoration program.
For you, when you go out there, how do you feel? Like when you go out and you step in the island, you see all this bird life and the tuatara and that everywhere. How do you feel? What does it mean to you?
Well, but what I do feel is that a lot of the birds and insects that I'm looking at are not on the mainland. I suppose I feel that, and that's a bit sad. That's about it, really, because I mean, so we were brought up with those animals, whereas immigrants who have come after the extinction or the demise of those animals wouldn't even know that they even existed. So that for ourselves, and I guess that's what those islands have been, really. It's been a learning place for our own capacity building, succession planning. It's been all of those sorts of things around kaitiakitanga. Was how would Ngati Wai want to manage and preserve these things in the future?
And finally, what are Ngati Wai's plans for the future?
Ngati Wai's plans for the future is the return of all of those properties and that were improperly taken from our possession, our kaitiakitanga. We certainly, let's just wind that back a little bit, because we talked about the restructuring that DOC's are going through at the moment, which is a major, really. And of course, fortunately for myself, I watched DOC get born, so I've got a pretty good handle on what the impacts have been of those restructurings that they're doing. And of course one of them was one that I just spoke to you about a little while ago, about employment. Eh? Even as tangata whenua, at the moment to get our kid a job, our kids got to leave home. Eh? And that's improper, that's more colonisation, the thumbs right down the middle of your back, eh? And I'm saying that, you know, to us, we are hoping that the white man's world has grown up a little bit, eh? We're hoping that they've grown up a little bit and that we can have some kind of peace and understanding amongst ourselves, eh? There's no more this year, you bloody Maoris are just bloody savages or something, and that us Pākehās are here as your salvation. Man, I tell you what, it might look like you fellas could be that once upon a time, but the actual end results today, is quite depressing. So that's our aspirations for the future, was the return of Ngati Wai kaitiakitanga, of its people and its environment, would be the return.